Hello there, welcome to Verbling. My name's Hamish. This is an IELTS speaking preparation class, and today we're going to have a look at IELTS 1 speaking section. We're going to look at questions 1 and 2. I've got an echo. I'm trying to make a correction. Then 1 second. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Oh yes. Thank goodness. So yes, please join this class if you want to practice your IELTS speaking with me, or if you just want to practice your English speaking in general. This is a great way to practice your English in social speaking situations and also academic speaking situations. So I look forward to seeing you here. I'm going to say hello, first of all, to Alex. How are you doing, Alex?
Hi there. Doing fine, thanks.
Excellent. And what time is it with you?
12 a.m.
12 a.m. Goodness me. Well, I'm very impressed that you're here with me right now. It's just 4 in the afternoon for me today, so I'm doing okay. And how are you? Yes. And how's the weather, Alex? How's the weather with you?
Seriously, a bit foggy, I suppose.
A bit foggy. Okay. Okay. Well, nothing I can do about that, alas. We had a pretty good day here in Tennessee. Blue skies. It's promising that it's almost the end of winter, so I'm sort of hanging on for that. Good to see you again, Alex, and I look forward to some good speaking practice with you in this class. Alan, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm alright, thank you, Hamish. How are you?
I'm very good. I don't think we've spoken before. Where are you from, Alan?
I'm from Paris, but I live in London at the moment.
Oh, really? Excellent. And what are you doing in London?
I'm a web designer.
Very cool, very cool. And are you planning on, or do you need to take the IELTS exam?
Not really. I'm actually thinking taking classes to improve the way I communicate with others at work. So.
Very good. Okay. And well, I hope you get some good speaking practice here in this class. And
yeah, I hope so.
And I have to say, yes, it's very important, of course, if you're working in London to practice your English in those work situations. And I know that the British have a unique way of communicating, and I mean, I'm British and I live in the United States now. I love the British people, of course, but it takes a little bit of time to get used to you know, the way they speak and the things they're interested in talking about. Yeah. When did you arrive in London? How long have you been there?
I moved in London about a year ago.
All right. Well, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's excellent. Well, Alan, it's really good to meet you, and I look forward to some good practice with you today.
Oh.
Gianfranco, hi. How are you?
Hi. Fine, and you?
I'm pretty good. It's good to see you again. I'm looking forward to some good speaking practice with you today, Gianfranco. Very nice to see you. Let's see. We have M for Can. Oh, I'll try. Akurek. I try.
Forget my surname. Just forget.
Well, okay. So okay, Furkan. Now, tell me, where are you from, Furkan?
Turkey.
Turkey, very nice to meet you. How is the weather? Well, it looks kind of dark out there. What time is it in Turkey?
12 a.m.
12 a.m. again, of course it is. Yes, Turkey. Okay, so there's Furkan. Now, tell me, are you planning on taking the IELTS exam?
No, but I will take an exam like IELTS.
All right. What exam are you planning to take?
My school's exam is like the IELTS or TOEFL.
All right. Okay. Yes, and we can say the TOEFL and IELTS. All these exams, they're all a little bit unique. They all have slightly different requirements and strategies. But at the same time, of course, speaking, English speaking practice is English speaking practice, and the more we get of that in an exam type environment, I think the better. So I hope we have a good class for you today. Very nice to meet you as well. We have a mentor. Hello, mentor.
Oh, nice to see you, teacher.
Yes, we've met before.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Is this your first IELTS class on Verbling? I can't remember.
No, it's third one, I think.
All right, okay, so you've done these before. Okay, well, I look forward to good practice with you as well, mentor. Very nice to see you again.
Yeah.
And last of all, we have Rasmus. Hello, Rasmus. How are you? Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just
there we
muted.
go.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm really good. Are you looking to take the IELTS exam soon?
No, not really. I'm not really sure what it is.
Okay. Well, it's an exam that people take if they want to, particularly if they want to study abroad in UK universities in particular. It's run by the British Council, but there are American schools that will take an IELTS score. So often it's for students or graduates who want to do further study abroad in an English-speaking school. It's also for people who want to emigrate abroad to English-speaking countries.
Is it different than the TOEFL?
Yeah, it's a different exam. And the speaking section, they're I would say significantly different. But if you're practicing for one, like the TOEFL, it's still good practice for the IELTS exam as well, because of course, even though the structure is different, what they're looking for, it's very similar. Exactly, of course, they're just looking for good, communicative, fluent, coherent English, all that good stuff. So it's if you practice one, it's really good for the other. I think anyway. So tell me, so what are you studying or are you working? What are you doing these days, Rasmus?
Both. I'm working. I'm working and trying to write my thesis on the side, which is not going too well.
Well, that's hard work. That's hard work. I remember doing that a few years ago myself, and that's I guess they seem to make it that kind of difficult on students. I know how that goes. Well, I hope you get something out of this class, and I hope you get some good practice with us. Very nice. Very nice to meet you, Rasmus.
You too.
I'm just going to make our list of people. Now, we're going to do some good practice today. We're going to look, we're going to look at part one. The questions in part one are so general, so day-to-day, that I don't think we need a special class to practice those questions, because any English-speaking practice, I think, is good practice for part one. So we're going to look at what part one is, but we're quickly going to move on to part two, because that's much more specific. The requirements for the IELTS speaking part two are I think much more rigid, and much more something that you really should practice before you take the IELTS exam. Can anyone remind me? We know IELTS speaking, it's got 3 parts. We know it takes around 15 minutes on a good day. But the part one of the speaking section, what kind of questions are they asking you in part one?
General question asking you.
For example?
For example, where do you live?
Right.
Yeah. What do you do in your life, and so on.
I think, and exactly. I mean, one of the first things they'll ask after they confirm your identity and you show them your card, the first thing they'll say, is, well, do you work or are you a student? And the answer that you give will inform the further questions they ask. And of course, if you're a student, they'll ask about your studies, why you chose that subject, all that good stuff. And if you work, they'll ask you about your job, what you do, who you work with, things like that. So they'll I say definite, it's very likely they'll ask about your studies, or they'll ask you about your work. But still in part one, and we're talking about maybe a 5-minute period of time, so they confirm your identity, ask about work or study. They'll ask you about something else as well. They'll pick another subject. Can anyone tell me the kinds of things they might ask about? it's quite a wide range of subjects.
For example, pollution,
Ismail, sorry, can you tell me again?
contamination and pollution.
Oh well, that would come, I think, in part 3. That's a pretty
Oh, yeah.
that's a broad
I
subject.
passed an exam in the first certificate.
Hmm.
The first it was your name, something like this, and the second it was like, yes, that's this topic, pollution, contaminations, and you have to give me your advances and disadvantages, something like this. I don't remember exactly.
Well, and Ismail, that's very much a part 3 subject. They might generally talk about as you say, pollution or environmental issues. Part 3 is a very broad area, and it could be environmental issues. It could be education, history, economics. But for part 1, these are questions very much directed at yourself. I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you. 1 second. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. All right, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, now I have a range of pictures and images here, and these are all of these are things they might ask you in part 1, after they confirm your identity, after they ask about, are you a student, do you work? Here's a few other things they might ask about. What do we have here? What do you see?
Marriage.
Right, they might ask you for view. Of course, they might say, "Are you married?" But then about your views on marriage. They could ask you about marriage in your home country as well. They could say, "Is it a popular thing? What are the customs in for your country's marriage? Do they get married in the church?" All questions like that. Okay, what else have we got?
Shopping.
The weather.
Oh, I heard shopping and the weather. Okay, so there's shopping, absolutely, and the weather. And questions about the weather, they could say, they're not going to say, well, what's the weather like today? Because they'll know you're right there in the room with them. But they might ask you to describe your favorite kind of weather. They might even ask you, how do you feel when it's raining outside? They might ask you if your country has, very particular different seasons throughout the year. They might ask you about what is the weather typically like in the summer or the winter. Questions like that. They might even ask you, on a hot summer's day, what do you like to do in the town that you're living in now? So all sorts of things about weather and shopping. Yes, they could ask you about online shopping. They could ask you, do you do your groceries or do your shopping on a weekly basis? Do you like shopping? What kind of things do you like to buy? Questions, to be honest, questions that you might easily ask people or ask someone if you just want to get to know them. Most of this is just very much small talk, personal questions, but all of these subjects are very acceptable in British or North American culture and very common things to ask people. What else have we got on my screen?
Healthy
Traveling.
life.
I'm sorry? Try
Traveling,
again.
no?
Oh, traveling, absolutely, yeah, okay. A very common one, because of course you can imagine anyone taking the IELTS exam, well, they're interested in travel. Either they're interested in emigrating and living abroad permanently, or perhaps they're interested in traveling abroad to study or further their studies. So lots of questions about travel, and I would hope if anyone got those travel questions, they would feel pretty confident about answering them, because they're always you're always going to have something good to say about that. What else have we got? Let's see.
Education.
Education. Thank you. There you go. Yeah, and sport, of course.
TV shows.
Thank you. Very good. There we go. There's my very modern-looking television there.
Family.
Of course, and that's a very common.
Costumes.
Oh yeah. Now let me make this a little bigger so we can see it, because that's a little hard to see. Oh.
Carnival.
Festival.
Yes, exactly. A carnival or festival, and they again a common question for them to ask is really to inquire about either national holidays in your home country, or celebrations, or just like right here, festivals in your home country. Anything that has that unique cultural sense where you're from, they would ask about that, and maybe they'll ask if it's if it's changed in the last few years, about what people do, about the food, the drink, the music, all those things. And again, they're looking for your own personal view on these things and your own personal knowledge. I would think all of these questions here, the challenge is not the subject material. You should all have good answers for that. The challenge is going to be the is to describe it in English, really. So, but all of these are good things to think about and prepare for in advance of the IELTS speaking section, because these are all very common things to come up. Now, let's see. We have. Let me make this one a little bit bigger. What do we have there?
Oh, food.
Diet.
Food. Well, both. Yes, food and diet. So they could talk about healthy food. We could talk about unhealthy or fast food. They might ask you, of course, do you like eating out? Do you like cooking at home? And all sorts of questions around cooking and food and really the things you like to eat. This one is a very old-fashioned looking photo, but we have
movies.
Yeah, exactly right. Say no more. Very good. Now the last one is actually a little tricky to tell. So again, let me make it bigger.
Your hometown.
Perfect. Absolutely. And this is not my hometown, but I have to tell you, it's a classic American hometown. We have a, let's see. Oops, well, that is not it. We have a drugstore here. We have American flag, another American flag. I don't know how that guy got in there. But the classic sidewalks, the small, narrow main street, cars parked. Yes, a town hall and some stores, and that sort of that central area, crosswalks. So a really a classic-looking town square, really, of an American town. And so they could ask you all kinds of questions about the town. Well, about your hometown, and when they say hometown, they really mean either the place where your family is, or where they're from, where you went to school, really the town of your childhood. And of course, for a lot of people, that's not the town you're living in now. So they're looking for a description of what it was like when you were younger, and do you go back now to visit? How much do you see of your family? All questions like that. And these are, I have to be honest, I think you get a lot of interesting answers to questions like this. But yeah, there you can see. So you've got food, family, sports, marriage, and we had work here, by the way. But we already talked about that. Television, the weather, cultural festivals, shopping, and education, of course. So all of those things, one or two of those, you would expect the examiner to talk about during part one of the IELTS speaking exam. Now, so we yeah.
Please, can I have a question?
Of course you can.
Where is the difference between IELTS and TOEFL? Which one is easier or harder? Okay,
no, that's a good question. That's a good question. The truth is, I think that they're both. I don't think I wouldn't say that one is easier or more difficult than the other. Of course, some students would express a preference for IELTS over TOEFL, or the other way around. But they're not geared. They're not designed to be, for one to be easier or more difficult than the other. They're really for different purposes. Or maybe 10 years ago they were. Now, of course, you'll find American schools that use an IELTS score, and you'll find British schools that will take a TOEFL score. But traditionally, it was the case that TOEFL was for North America, and IELTS was for the UK and Commonwealth countries, if you like, Australia, New Zealand, places
Canada.
Like that. Canada, exactly right. But now there's more of a mix, and sometimes you do have a choice about the one you take. But most of the time, I would say that a school or a country even is going to tell you which one you have to take.
Okay, about the accent, IELTS is more British than American. If I use American language or American accent to express something in my speech, would they take in count that I'm using American, not British, and may make my grade lower than what should I expect, or something like that?
No, that's going to be absolutely fine. I mean, the IELTS exam is run by the British Council, and so you would expect, oh, okay, British English. But you'll see if you visit if you do an internet search for IELTS and British Council, you'll find all kinds of frequently asked questions about the exam, like, when do I get my score? How do I apply? Really helpful information on their website. But one thing they make absolutely clear is it doesn't matter if you use British English or American English. Doesn't matter at all. So you don't have to worry about that. Just use the one you're most confident in, and instead of worrying about British or American vocabulary, just think about good word choice, and of course a good talking speed, good pronunciation, and of course answering the question. Then those are the most important things you're going to concentrate on in the IELTS exam. Yes, the British and American thing doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They'll accept either variant of English, so no problem there.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Is the test expensive?
I remember a student I was preparing for the IELTS recently, and he turned up, and he didn't have his identity card, and so we had to take the test again, and that was expensive because he had to pay to take the test again. I can't actually remember how much it is, but again, I would do a web search.
It's a little bit expensive. That's what I said you before.
My
sorry.
country.
135 Great Britain pounds.
135 euros.
Oh, okay. Thank you
So
for that.
approximately it's $150. $150.
Okay.
Approximately.
Yeah. Thanks, mentor.
my
Again,
country.
yeah. No, exactly, and it's going to probably be a little bit different in various places, but that's helpful to
TOEFL is cheaper.
get an idea. I'm sorry?
TOEFL is cheaper than IELTS.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. I think I'm sure that's true, but of course it's going to depend on the one you need. Sometimes sometimes the comparisons can be helpful. If you have a choice, great to compare the two exams. But sometimes, especially if you're going to a particular school, they're going to tell you which one.
I can give advice. The guy who just asked you before.
Mm-hmm.
During my searching for scholarship for PhD, they usually ask for TOEFL, also for IELTS, so it's alternative.
Okay.
One or another, so no one has the priority in the PhD, especially in Europe. Yeah.
Okay, that's mentor. I appreciate that. That's helpful. I think a lot of the time, if you're emigrating, for example, to Australia, and I know I've helped a lot of students or professionals rather, who are preparing for that general side of IELTS. Well, IELTS has been the exam that they had to take, and they didn't have a choice. But as you say, there are going to be situations where you do have a choice, and I think that makes it an interesting debate about which one you want to take. I mean, I will say that both, of course, they're scored in a different way, and but they still cover the four main language skills, if you like. So you need to have a good competency in all four of those things to be successful. And I think both tests can be very challenging. But at the same time, I also believe that with good preparation and good practice combined with already good English skills, of course you can be successful in these exams. Yeah. So,
Mr. I just want to ask you one. Do you know if the American university accept first certificates and advanced certificates? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I do. I know that the TOEFL score is the most common score that a North American university is going to be asking for. It's just absolutely what they traditionally ask for. In terms of certificates, I'm not sure, but I think they're quite transparent about what they need. So you might just want to check the college websites and see what they're talking about, because they are very interested in getting foreign students to come and to study at their schools or to do further research at their schools. So they're very keen to attract the students, but of course they also need to make sure that the English level is of a high enough standard that those students can be successful at those schools as well.
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can, yeah.
Okay. Is it enough to pass IELTS to attend those universities in United Kingdom or other countries?
You're going to need a specific score in IELTS, depending on what you want to do. And if you need the IELTS score to study abroad, you're going to take the academic version of the IELTS exam. If you're wanting to emigrate, you're going to take the general. Or if you want to have a certain profession, you're already qualified, you just want to do the work, then you would take the general IELTS. The score is going to be different depending on what you do. By the way, the speaking section of IELTS, it's the same whether you take the academic route or the general route. So the speaking section is the same. But for example, a lot of people when they're emigrating, they would need a 7.5 general, and they average that score across the reading, writing, speaking, and listening. But again, the schools are going to require different IELTS academic scores depending on the subject and depending on the school as well, because it's up to the school or university to decide what score they need.
Yeah. Some school ask for six. Some school ask for 6.5. Some school ask for 7. And depending on which degree you take. For example, for PhD, you need more.
Absolutely, and I've seen the requirement even lower than that for some academic situation. Not that makes it very, very easy, just that there is quite a significant space between a 6 and a 9, for example. I mean, you would expect you would have to be very advanced and really having to prepare very well at the IELTS to get some of those higher scores. But as you say, sometimes, and in a lot of situations, you do not need that top score. You just need a certain level, and it's so important to get in touch or do your research and find out which schools need which scores, the kind of route you need to take. And as you say, if you have a choice between TOEFL and IELTS, it's worth having a think about that. But I couldn't say for every student that there was one that was easier or less challenging than the other. I think it really depends. It's really worth taking a look and looking at some of the free practice materials that IELTS and TOEFL offer all over the internet. You can practice all these questions, and then maybe you'll have a better idea about, okay, well, I'd rather do this one than that one. But it's definitely worth having a think about that. Yes, indeed. Now, let's have a look at part 2 of the speaking section. Can anyone tell me how long does part 2 generally take?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, and that's the speaking part. You get 2 minutes.
1 minute to think.
Yes, thank you.
2 minutes to speak.
Very nice. I think I'll write that down in the box. That was very helpful. 1 minute preparation time, right? And then 1 to 2 minutes speaking time. Okay. So so the examiner, and again, this is a key difference between the TOEFL IBT or the TOEFL Internet test and the IELTS test. With the TOEFL, and in most situations, people are taking the internet version of the TOEFL exam. With TOEFL, you'll have your headphones on, speaking with a microphone into your webcam, just like we're doing right now. But with the IELTS exam, you'll need to go to an IELTS assessment center, and they have them all over the world. Clearly, for some people, that's an easier thing to do than others if you live in a remote area. But yes, important to keep in mind with the IELTS exam, you're going to an examination center, and you will be speaking to a live person during the speaking section. So it can feel very different. And then for me, I think I would rather speak to a person than a computer. I think I'd feel more relaxed about that. But again, it's different for everybody. I would say, okay, so they're going to give you a minute to prepare, and you will have 2 minutes to actually give your answer. Tell me, what kind of things, in part 2 of the exam, what kind of things are they going to ask you about?
For example, describe a place you recently have visited. Describe where it is, when did you go, who did you go with, and why the place is important to you.
Right. Yeah, very nice. Thank you. That's a great example. And we know that, I mean, in part 2 of the exam, it's still very much personal questions only you can answer, and questions that are about your past, your present, or your future, right? And most often, it's going to be questions about childhood, or about, again, it could be about work, it could be about, hey, it could be about a favorite song, a favorite book, a favorite meal, a favorite restaurant, a trip that you want to go on, all kinds of things that no one else really can categorically answer for you. It's going to be things that that you should have the information on, because it's just a personal question about you, and the challenge is going to be to directly answer that question, and to answer it, of course, in English as well. So that's really where the challenge is. The information, that shouldn't be too hard to find. I say that, though, of course, the truth is some of these questions, maybe even though it's not difficult information, they might be things that you're not so used to talking about, even in your own first language. If they ask you to talk about a favorite object, for example, that's not something that you normally ask about at a party or a dinner party. So it can be sometimes feel a little strange to talk about these things. And of course, a lot of students, they don't like to. I mean, you know, you're in an exam talking to a complete stranger, and it can feel strange to talk about the time when your parents were very proud of you, or talk about your best friend. These are things that you might not feel that comfortable talking about. And well, those are the questions, though. So very important to prepare and practice, and so you can feel more comfortable on the day, because the more comfortable you feel, the more relaxed you're going to sound, and the better English the examiner is going to hear as well. So I'm not saying all these questions are fun and a delight to answer, but it's very important that we practice and prepare, and just get into the rhythm of these types of questions. So all sorts of questions about us and about our personal lives, about our history, childhood, and it could be about the work we're doing now. It could be about role models, about our favorite celebrity, about a famous actor we want to meet. And also an important thing about the IELTS exam is during part 2, yes, they'll ask the question, but they'll also give you probably, 3 or 4 bullet points underneath. And these are kind of little signposts, things for you to include in your answer. And Ismail gave us a really good example of that. And it's a classic thing where they think about, okay,
when, where, how, and why.
Yeah, it's going to be things like that. And of course, it might say you should include those in your answer, or remember to include those in your answer, or perhaps you might include those in your answer. I would suggest, if they're listening to those, then include those in your answer, right? I think it's going to be a very clear signal for you to talk about that kind of thing, and I think that's really helpful for those questions to include those details. It gives you a very clear signal that you should be talking about these kinds of things. it doesn't mean you have to answer them 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order, but it's worth thinking about them. And also, by the way, when the examiner gives you this Part 2 question, they're physically going to give you a card with the question on it, and it's going to have those other points. So you'll see the question on paper or on card. You get to read it, and again, you have that for a minute. They're also going to give you they're going to give you some paper as well, and I think a pencil if you want to take the note. And of course, they're also going to read out the question to you, so you'll get to hear it from the examiner. You'll get to read it, and then they'll give you 1 minute to prepare your answer. And then they'll say, okay, well now I'm going to give you 1 to 2 minutes to give me your answer, and they'll ask you to start. And what do you think? Well, if they give you 1 to 2 minutes, what's a good length for an answer, do you think?
You don't really have time for more than a few phrases, so.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely right. I mean, I think in the TOEFL exam, that's a classic situation. You only have 45 seconds. With this one, in the IELTS, well, up to 2 minutes. There are a few things. There's quite a lot of detail you could provide, but still at the same time, yes, it's not the longest time in the world. And of course, if if you're talking at a natural pace and you're concentrating, of course, on your pronunciation, concentrating on providing a logical and coherent answer, the word count shouldn't be that high, really. So yes, you'll just have some key ideas that you want to put out.
Of course, yeah. We should learn to make up stories, because they are not looking for the truth. So if we invent a story or make up a story, it can be, and so the solution is we should read more or watch English more, so we can remember something about the cue card topic. Or I think, for example, if they ask you something about your for example, something about shopping, you can turn to the topic to internet or online shopping. Or maybe if they ask you something about you, maybe you can tell them, for example, if they ask your birthday, maybe you can tell them your sister's birthday, what you have. So I think they are only looking for how your English is. So it's not so important story.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a very important point. I know we talked quite briefly in the last class about this sort of honesty issue, and about, do we need to tell the truth in our answers? And I think it's easier if we have a truthful answer. It feels more natural to say it. But I agree, Ismail, 100%, that the examiner does not care. After they confirm your identity, they don't care if you're giving an honest or truthful answer. They care about your English, and they care about your communicative abilities. So absolutely right. If the question is, tell me about your favorite song from your childhood, and you don't like music, and you didn't have a favorite song, well, that's not going to be the answer. The answer is going to be, you're going to have to think of a song, even make something up, and talk about it in that way, and provide a clear description. Now that could be challenging and a difficult thing. A lot of students would find it even more difficult in this exam to have to make something up. And again, that's why it's a really good idea to start thinking about some of these potential questions about a favorite book, favorite magazine, favorite music, games. And if you don't if you're not interested in these subjects, start thinking about what you could possibly give as an answer.
If they ask you what's your favorite music, and then you answer that you don't have any favorite music, and then you explain the reason why, is it valuable? If it's consistent and you have
it would be fair if it was, right? I mean, it would be a nice idea. The truth is, they're going to ask you to the music question, for example, they will ask you to describe the favorite song from your childhood. If your answer is, oh, I don't really have one, and perhaps you speak beautifully about that, it's still going to be a problem, and it's going to reduce your score. You really need to come up with a song. And I understand a lot of people aren't interested in music, absolutely, and that's absolutely fine. But I really do believe that anyone can think of a song from the past and pick that song and describe it, because they're not going to ask you to sing it. You just need to talk about it. But yes, pick something. Much better to pick something, because the question isn't, do you have a favorite song? It's describe that song, and they'll want a description of a song. Yeah.
I have a question.
No, I have to say, I guarantee now no one will ever get that song question now that we've talked about it for 5 minutes. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Okay. The examiner, during the speaking section, he will just only listen to my response, or maybe talk with me and discuss it with me, or he just for 2 minutes just listening, or maybe pass question. Can he pass question if he wants? Or
that's a really good question, and thank you for bringing that up. With part 2, they call it a long turn, and that means you're doing the talking and the examiner is doing the listening. So if you speak for a minute and you give a full answer, he or she is just going to say, oh, well, thanks very much. Now I'd like to talk about, and you'll move on to part 3. So he's not going to start a conversation with you about this. Having said that, sometimes, if you've clearly finished your answer in part 2, sometimes they'll ask a follow-up question. So maybe you'll get a sort of a 2B, if you like, a second part to the question. Sometimes they'll do that. Sometimes they have a list of follow-up questions that they could ask for part 2. But generally, I mean, there's not going to be a conversation between you and the examiner. It's very much about you doing the speaking and them doing the listening. So I would approach it from that side, and anticipate that they're not going to have 2 other questions about that subject. Yeah. Part 3 is very different. Part 3, they'll have a series of questions, and that will feel much more like a conversation. It doesn't mean you get to ask them a question, but it will feel. I think it feels much more natural. And a lot of students, even though the language can be more difficult in part 3, they often feel more comfortable because they've done part 1 and part 2. They got through that, realized they could do it. And part 3 can just feel more just like a normal conversation, really. Whereas part 2 clearly is artificial and an examination, because you don't get, no one goes up to you normally and says, okay, here's 1 minute on this question. It's clearly an exam. Part 3 I think can feel a bit more comfortable, a bit more relaxed. Yeah. All right, so all sorts of questions about childhood, about your past, about your present, about work, about celebrities, all kinds of things. Questions only you can answer. I would like to practice one of these. Remember, we've got 1 minute preparation time and 1 to 2 minutes speaking time. First on my list. Oh yes, Alan, would you like to practice one of these with us?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to, I hope this works, I hope the technology allows us. I'm going to share my screen with everyone here, and I'm going to give Alan a part 2 question. So you'll see so you can read the question on the screen. You can read the bullet points as well. And so I'll give, and of course everyone, please take that 1 minute to plan out your answer. Then after a minute, and I'll be very clear about the timing. After a minute, I'll ask Alan to give me his response, and he'll have 1 to 2 minutes. After he's finished, we can talk about that answer, and then we'll practice with another student. And yes, I'm going to try and make sure you can all see this question. Let me see. That's not the question, clearly. There we go, part 2. Okay, here's the question. Alan, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, okay. Alan, I would like for you to describe an artist or entertainer you admire. Here's your card. Please take a look at the 4 points underneath the question, and you should talk about those in your answer. Alan, I'm going to give you 1 minute to prepare your answer. Your 1 minute starts now.
Okay.
Okay, Alan, you have 1 to 2 minutes to give me your answer. Please start speaking when you're ready.
Okay, so the artist I want to talk about is a photographer, an amazing photographer that I love, which is called, his name is Xavier Navarro. He's a famous French photographer. He mainly shoots weddings and portraits and that kind of things. So how did he become successful? He started photography in a journalism agency. So he was basically shooting only journalist event related. And then he got married and then started to get interested into wedding photography, and that's how his business started. So how did I find about him? How did I find about him? Basically, I'm also a wedding photographer, and I've been looking out on the internet to find out some amazing photographer based first in the US. I find some amazing photographer, and after that I was looking for a photographer based in my home country, which is France. So that's how I found about him, because he's one of the most famous photographer in France. And why do I admire him? I admire him because he's got an amazing feeling into his photos. You can feel all the emotion in them, and also because he's a great on the social side, he connects very well with the couples he's working with, and he always keep a good relationship with them. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Very nice. Okay, and that was almost 2 minutes exactly. So some really good speaking. I thought that was really good. Tell me, what do you think a question like that is that a good news question,
No,
or is it a bad
wasn't.
news question? How do you
It was
feel?
quite a bad news because I didn't know which one to choose and which story talk about. So
Yeah.
it was too complicated.
So
I would
now
have
I'm
preferred something
interested.
like
How much?
how much? What do you mean?
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, so yeah. How much time? Oh, sorry. I stopped my question. How much time? How much of your 1 minute did you spend deciding who you were going to talk about?
I think the half.
Yeah, yeah.
It may be more.
And that's
I was
when
hesiting between many.
Absolutely, and that's very difficult, isn't it? Because you know, you get your answer. You think, okay, that's my subject, that's my topic. But then, of course, you think, okay, well, oh no, I have 4 points to look at, and I thought you gave a comprehensive answer. Let's see, we've got 4 points: who they are, how they became successful, how you found out, explain why you admire them. Did you cover all 4 points, Alain?
Yeah, because I did, because I answered to each question. I don't. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the right way to do it. Maybe it's better to have a story, because I was actually reading the question and then answer to it. So
yeah, I think that was. I mean, it's a little thing. I think it's very important to give the examiner an idea of where you are, and of course that one way to do that is to say, oh, how did I find out about them? Well, and I think that's one way to do it. I would suggest that maybe there are better ways to do that. And I don't think this does. Well, I know this does not apply to you, but of course, if a candidate was reading the words off as part of their response, it's quite hard for the examiner to use those words and take them as original spoken English, because of course, and I mean, I know that's not why you were doing it, but that's one risk that we run into. But having said that, of course, it did make your answer much clearer. And yeah, I mean, I want to fit in another practice, so I don't want to get into too much detail. But I thought the spoken English was very clear, and had a good talking speed as well. And those things are very important, because of course, if the examiner can't understand the candidate, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone's saying if they can't be understood. And one of the things that's very important in terms of a candidate's score is, well, to be blunt, is how hard is the examiner having to work to understand what the candidate is saying. And if the examiner is having to strain, if they're thinking, oh, I nearly got it, what is he saying, or what is she saying, that makes it, that of course reduces the score. But I would have to say, I think I understood really quite easily what you were saying.
What score would you give me?
I'm not going to give you a score today, Alain.
Why?
Because I'll tell you why. Because I'm not. While I do prepare a lot of students for IELTS, I'm not a professional IELTS examiner, and I don't think it's going to help you for me to give you a score. That's why. Having said that, I thought it was a strong answer. You gave a direct answer to the question. Good structure, good fluency, coherent. It made sense. It was easy to understand. Little bits of hesitation, but you're allowed to have a little bit of hesitation because you're answering a live question. So it was a high score. I'm not going to give it a number, but it was a good answer. Yes, thank you, Alain, for that one. Let me go back to my screen. Let me see. Ah, yes. I would like to ask Gianfranco, are you happy to practice one with us?
Of course.
All right, I'm going to give you, okay, one more. We're going to do this class again next week, and I promise you we'll do a lot more practice of these part 2 questions, and so you'll have a lot more practice time with me. I'm sorry that we're running short of time today.
Okay.
Gianfranco, I'm going to go back to my, let's see, there we go, okay. It's obviously not this question. We're going to do a different one. But again, please, everybody, take that when you see the question, please take that 1 minute to
the same
practice.
question?
No, different one, I promise.
Oh, okay.
I know, wouldn't that be fun? No, a different question. Please take that 1 minute to, it's still good practice to think about your answer, to think through it, to imagine what, first of all, choose what you're going to talk about, but then use this 1 minute as a good practice time to think, oh, okay, that's how long that minute feels. Is it a long time? Is it short time? But let's take a look at number 2. So this one is for Gianfranco, but I think everyone should, if you can, just have a think about what you might say, and if you want to write down some notes, that's good as well. Okay, here's the question. Oh, okay, they've all got small, I'm sorry. Let me see. I know I need to make it a little bit bigger. Sorry. Your time has not started yet, I promise.
Okay.
There we go. That's a little bit better. Phew. Now we can read it. Gianfranco, I would like for you to describe a subject you enjoyed studying at school. I'm going to give you this card. Here it is. There are 4 points on there. You should include answers to those 4 points within your answer. I'm going to give you 1 minute to prepare your answer. Your 1 minute starts now.
Okay.
Okay, Gianfranco, you have 1 to 2 minutes to give me your answer. Please start speaking when you're ready.
Okay. The subject that I really enjoyed during my school was chemistry. I studied during the high school at the San Agustin School. The professor that give all lectures for that course is Sarah. Sarah was a very good teacher and also give always the best from her to deliver her knowledge to all students and also make comfortable to all of them. The lessons that I really liked were about orbital theories and also when we first studied the periodic table and learned about all the atoms and how they behave differently from another was very fun for me. And I also learned a lot about chemistry, the basic I mean. Well, what make that subject different from another subjects that I had during high school is that we made a lot of experiments in the field of chemistry. For example, one time we had to do an application of one reaction, chemical reaction. So I came up with a volcano, mixing vinegar with bicarbonate. So it was very fun. And also I had applied a chemical reaction on that show. Another thing that I really like about that subject is that I really like science. So that was my first approach to one of the 3 main areas of science. I mean, chemical.
Okay, now, Gianfranco,
Okay.
that's good. Thank you. They'll stop you at the 2 minute mark. I promise I'm not trying to be rude. Very, very quickly, what do you think of that question, first of all? Is that a good question or a bad question to get?
It's a very good question because everyone, when attends school, has a favorite subject, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think everyone should have something that they're going to talk about. Now, tell me, is that really your favorite subject, or did you choose?
Yes.
Okay. I have to say, you gave a lot of detail, and I thought it was a very convincing and very interesting, and yes, a very well detailed answer. You gave a lot of good information. I thought you painted or drew a very clear picture when you were answering those points. I think, that the third thing, you did cover it. I think that's the most difficult one. Is like, why is it different from the other subjects? And then
yes,
that's a difficult one to answer. And I know you left it towards the end, but you did answer it. Even when I stopped you, you'd given me a good reason why it was different, and you've given me some good details about the kind of experiments you were doing. I really liked your description of the teacher and why you thought that Zara was an effective teacher. Your description of the different classes, and of course why you enjoyed it, and even of course right at the beginning, when you were studying, and St. Augustine, the school as well. So some very good information.
Yes, the third question that I had to answer, I didn't have. When I was preparing my answer, I didn't know what to say. It came naturally when I answered the question. Yeah. No, that's good. That's definitely good. Yes, because I have to take the topic this Friday, so it's very good. Hello?
No, absolutely. So I would say well done. Yep. No, I'm still here. I would say well done, Gianfranco, with your answer there. We have to finish the class right there. I see I'm a minute off over my time. But yes. We're gonna do this the same day, same time next week. We'll continue with our IELTS practice, and we're going to do hopefully get a lot more of this part 2 practice, because I can see these you gave me some excellent answers today, and so we had some good discussion. But yes, thanks so much for sticking with it here with me in class, and
thank you.
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much, and thanks for the dog, and I'll see you next time. All right, Bye. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.